So today we are going to begin a new chapter, Fourier series and Fourier transform. So Fourier series is something that you come across when you're dealing with periodic functions. Okay, so where do we encounter periodic functions? In physics there are several examples where you have waves, oscillations, so sound, right, light, all of these are periodic functions. So in all of these places what we will do is we can apply Fourier series to represent these periodic functions in terms of sines and cosines. That's what Fourier series does. And why is this important in chemistry? In chemistry it is important because when you do spectroscopy, you will get certain waves or certain functions, especially in NMR spectroscopy. If you see, you will get your spectra, and what you have to do from there is you have to determine which is the main frequency and which is the overtone, right? So basically overtone means which are the higher frequencies and which is the main frequency. So all of this will help you determine what your exact spectra is and what it represents. So then you can decode what your molecule is, right? So this is why it is important in chemistry. In chemistry, in spectroscopy, Fourier series and Fourier transform comes a lot. So that's why we are going to learn it. Alright, so let's begin. So let's first consider a simple harmonic motion. So let's consider a simple harmonic motion and wave motion. Okay, so let us first draw a circle, right, and then I'll explain why I'm drawing a circle. Okay, so let's say this is my circle, this is my let's call it the Z or the complex plane. Okay, so Z is equal to x plus I y. Alright, so then this is your x, the real axis, and this is y, your imaginary axis. Okay, so what we'll do is, let's say we have a point here, this point is P, okay, and this starts from, let's say, 0 0, and the length of from 0 to point P is your length A. Okay, now what we do is we keep another line here. Okay, and what we see is we project this point P onto this line. So then this point, let's call it Q. Okay, so what is the maximum value that Q can take? The maximum value that Q can take would be when P reaches here, right? So then the maximum value that Q can take is this. So this will be your Q max, and similarly this point here will be your Q min. Okay, alright. So what we are doing is we will move this point P. So from this point P, let's say we have some pendulum like thing, okay, and the length of the string is A. So we can move that string in, let's say, this direction, okay, and then it will come back to P at some point. Okay, so that coming back to P, it starts from P and comes back to P, that is called one period. Okay, and how fast it comes back to P, that will determine your frequency. Okay, that's what it means. So let's write it down. So W would be the angular velocity. Okay, of P, and theta is WT, right, because how fast the theta changes depends on how fast you can move it in time. So your Y is going to be A sine omega t, and X is going to be A cos omega t. Why? Because of this, right? So this is going to be your y and this is going to be your x. Okay? So if this is theta, right, then y is going to be a sine theta and x is a cos theta and theta is omega t. So we have y is equal to a sine omega t and x is a cos omega t. So if we write z in terms of x plus iy, we will have a cos omega t plus I sin omega t. Now using Euler's formula, this is nothing but a into e power I omega t. Okay. So this z represents your entire periodic space where a point is moving in a periodic fashion. Okay. This diagram, right, this diagram can also be correlated to a diagram in terms of y and t. Okay. So how will that be? Basically what you're doing is, y is nothing but a sine omega t. So all you have to plot is the sine omega t. Okay. So, and the maximum value that the function can take would be q max, right? So this is the maximum value that it can take and q min is the minimum value it can take. So it will be and so on, right? So this will be your a sine omega t. Alright. So why we do this? Because I want to impress upon you the fact that this kind of a periodic function can be represented in terms of a sine or a cosine function. Okay. So if we are representing x, then we can x versus time, it will be represented by the cos function. So it will be, you will get a cos wave. So you will have a cos omega t as the function that represents x versus time. So you can represent it. So Fourier was a mathematician, okay, and he was a great mathematician because he realized that any periodic function, okay, can be represented in the form, can be represented as a sum of sines and cosines. Okay. So what is Fourier series? Fourier series is nothing but representation of a periodic function in terms of sines and cosines. Okay. And we represent this in terms of sines and cosines because sine and cosines themselves are what? These themselves are periodic functions. Okay. So these are themselves periodic functions. So let's represent it pictorially. So let's represent a periodic function. So I'll give you examples of periodic functions, different types. So let's see. So we have okay. So this one here is minus pi, this is 0, this is pi, right? Okay. And so on. This is 2 pi, right? And then we can have okay. So these are all, this pi, this is 0, this is pi, this is 2 pi, this is 3 pi, and so on. Okay, and let's look at another function. Okay, this is minus pi, 0 pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, and so on. Okay, alright. So what is the period of this function? So the way you calculate period is, when does the function come back to the similar point from where it will repeat its pattern. Okay, so from here to here, so from this point it will start to repeat its pattern, right? It will again go up. Okay, so this period is 2 pi. And here if you see, when does it start to repeat its pattern? If you start from here and come back here, then over here it will start to repeat the pattern. So this is the period. So period is from minus pi to pi. So the way you calculate period is, you take the highest minus the lowest. So pi minus of minus pi, so you'll get 2 pi. Okay. Similarly here, again, here at this point it will repeat the pattern. Okay, so this again the period is 2 pi. So all of these three examples that I gave you, the period is 2 pi. So first we will deal with periodic functions which have period of 2 pi, and then we will go to periodic functions for which the period is not 2 pi, something different than 2 pi. Okay, alright. And what is sine? So if you look at sine function, what is sine of x plus 2 pi? It is sine x. So after 2 pi it comes back to the same value of sine x. So sine function is periodic in 2 pi. Okay. Similarly cos function, that is also periodic in 2 pi, right? Similarly if you look at sine of n into x plus 2 pi, this is nothing but sine nx plus 2n pi, right? And because 2n pi is basically n times 2 pi, right? So n times it will come back to the same function. So this is nothing but sine nx. Okay. And similarly you have cos nx plus 2 pi is nothing but cos nx plus 2n pi, which is cos nx. Okay. So if you look at these sine and cos functions, you see these functions are also periodic in 2 pi. And that is why of course there is a rigorous proof that Fourier had done, but using this intuitive argument you can see why sines and cosines are used to represent any periodic function. Okay, so now let's see how a periodic function is represented. So let's say we have a function f of x which is periodic in 2 pi. So after every 2 pi the pattern is going to repeat. Okay, so that's what we mean by periodic in 2 pi. So f of x is, so this f of x, which was a periodic function, this can be represented, as I told you, in sums of sines and cosines. So how is it represented? It's represented by half into a naught plus a1 cos x plus a2 cos 2x and so on, right, up to cos nx, and then plus b1 sin x plus b2 sin 2x and so on. Okay, this function is periodic with period 2 pi. Okay, so any function, any periodic function with period 2 pi can be represented in this manner. Okay, so now this is cos 1x, right? So 1 is your frequency, here 2 is the frequency, 3 again, here 2 is the frequency. So what you are doing is you are representing a function which has a more complicated form into something which is for which are in terms of sines and cosines, but the only things that are changing are the coefficients, right? a1, a2, a0, b1, b2, these are so the coefficients are changing and the frequency is changing. So if you know the frequency and the coefficients, then you can manipulate the function as well according to how you want. Okay, so that's why when what sound engineers do, right, when they want to change the sound, when they want to add a new tone, a new frequency, they just add that frequency. Okay, they don't have to look at how the wave will change. Okay, they don't of course there are softwares to do that, but what the software does is it doesn't really look at the actual function in time. What it looks at is how that function is represented, how the sound wave is represented in terms of frequencies, and then you just play around with the frequencies and then you change the sound. Okay, so you don't change the actual wave fully, but all you do is you just change one or two frequencies and that changes or that creates a better sound. Okay, so that's what we do. So now what we have to do, given a function f of x, we have to find with period 2 pi, we have to find the coefficients, right, which is a0, a1, a2, etc., b1, b2, etc., and the frequencies. Okay, in fact we don't even have to find the frequencies. Frequencies we already know that it will be of the form 2x, 3x, 4x. All we have to do is find the a0, a1, a2, etc. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. Okay, so keep in mind that we have to find that any periodic function can be represented in this manner, and then all we have to do is we have to find the coefficients a1, a0, a1, b1, b2, etc. Okay, alright. So what is, if you have just a0, what does it mean? It means that this is a0 cos 0x, right? And cos 0x is nothing but cos 0, which is 1, and that's why you don't write you don't write cos 0x, you have only half a0. But for sine you cannot have b0, right? Because sine 0 is actually 0. So the coefficient does not matter because the function, that particular term itself becomes 0. So only for the cos term you have this a0. Okay. So now remember that given a function, we have to find a0, a1, a2, b1, b2, etc. Okay, all of this we have to find. Now before we go into that, what we'll do is we'll first calculate certain averages. Okay. Why we do that will become clear once we try to calculate the coefficients, but first let's calculate the certain averages and then we will go back to calculating the coefficients. Okay, so what is an average, right? So what do you mean by average of a function? Okay, so suppose you have, let's represent the function in the y-x plane. Okay, so let's say this is your function. Okay, so y is equal to fx. This curve represents your function. And let's say you want to find the average between x1, which has the value a, and xn, which has the value b. Okay, so you want to find your average between x1 and xn for this function. So how will you do? So suppose, so average of f of x on a comma b, right? So a is the lower point, b is the higher point. So you want to find the average between in this interval. So what will it be? So what you do is you divide this curve into several parts. So this is x2, x3, etc. And what you, the average will be f of x1 plus f of x2 plus f of x3 and so on plus f of xn by n, right? Because you divided it into n parts and there are n such points, and then you divide it by n. Okay, so this is your average. So now as n increases and delta x becomes small. What is delta x? Delta x is nothing but x2 minus x1, x3 minus x2, right? So the difference between any two neighboring points, that is delta x. Okay, so the difference between 2 points, this will be delta x. Okay, so as n increases and delta x becomes small, so if you keep on dividing your function into more and more parts, in that case delta x will become smaller and smaller. Then your average becomes nothing but is nearly equal to f of x1 plus f of x2 plus f of xn into delta x by n delta x. Okay, so what is n delta x? N times delta x is nothing but b minus a. Okay, so this average becomes So let's write it properly. So n times delta x is nothing but b minus a. Okay, and so if n tends to infinity, then obviously delta x, which is dx, tends to 0. Okay, so then the average becomes 1 by b minus a, and then you are summing up all of these f of x1, f of x2, f of xn up to and multiplying it with the small delta x, which is nothing but integration of f of x dx in the region for a definite integral going from a to b. So this is your average. Okay, we are going to need such averages a lot while calculating coefficients. That's why we are first talking about the averages. So now let's calculate average of certain functions in the specified period. So let's say bit from minus pi to pi. Okay, all right. So what is minus pi to pi sine square x dx? Okay, so how will you calculate this? So you can convert sine square x into a cos 2x function, right? So that the integration becomes easier. So this is written as half into 1 minus cos 2x dx, right? Which is nothing but half dx minus pi to pi minus pi to pi cos 2x dx. Okay, so this will be half into x minus pi to pi minus 1 by 2 into 1 by 2 sine 2x minus pi to pi. Okay, so what is sine 2 pi? Sine 2 pi is 0. Sine of minus 2 pi is also minus sine 2 pi, which is also 0. So this term is 0. Okay, because sine 2 pi is 0 and sine minus 2 pi is also 0. So all you are left with is this term. So you can calculate this is going to be half into pi minus of minus pi, which is 2 pi by 2, right, which is pi. So the average, so this function, this is not the average, this is just the integration from pi to pi, from minus pi to pi of sine square x dx is nothing but pi. Okay. Similarly, also notice that this is a even function, right? So when you have an even function, right, what is an even function? Even function are those functions for which f of x is equal to, or f of minus x is equal to f of x. Okay. And odd function are those for which f of minus x is minus f of x. Now what is sine square x? Sine square x is if we call this f of x, then let's say this is f of x, then what is f of minus x? F of minus x is nothing but sine square of minus x, which is of minus 1 whole square sine square x, because sine of minus x is minus sine x. Okay, so but because this is a square function, it will be minus 1 whole square sine square x, which is nothing but sine square x. So sine square x is a even function. So when you have an even function and your limits go from minus a to a f of x is equal to 2 times 0 to a f of x, when f of x is an even function. So you can sometimes also simplify your integral like this if you need it. Okay, but for an odd function, what happens? Okay, let me write it on the next page. So for an odd function, minus a to a f of x dx will become 0. Okay, this is what will happen for an odd function. So since sine square x is an even function, the integral is non-zero. Okay, between minus a to a. If it was an odd function, it would have been 0. Alright. So let's calculate for sine x. Right, minus pi to pi. What will the answer be? It should be 0. So let's see if it is 0. So this will become minus cos x, going from minus pi to pi. So this will be minus of cos pi minus of cos minus pi, right? So this is 1 minus cos of minus x is also cos x. So cos pi is minus 1 and cos of pi again is minus 1. So you are going to have minus 1 minus minus 1. So this is 0. Okay. So for an odd function, the integral turns out to be 0. Okay. Now let's calculate for cos square x. Cos square x dx. So this is nothing but minus pi to pi 1 by 2 cos 2x plus 1 dx, which can be simplified to half 2 by 2 0 to pi cos 2x plus 1 dx, which is your 1 by 2 sine 2x plus x to pi, right? So here we have from sine, so sine 2 pi is 0 and sine 0 is also 0. So this term becomes 0 and all you're left with is x. So this x goes from 0 to pi. So this is nothing but pi. Okay. So this is your, so what is the average of this function? The average of so the average of sine square x between minus pi to 2 pi is going to be 1 by 2 pi integral sine square x dx from minus pi to pi. So this we have already calculated. This is nothing but your pi. So it will be, this is pi by 2 pi. Okay, which is half. Similarly, you will see that average of cos square x between minus pi and pi is nothing but half. Okay, alright. Now I want you to calculate, get average of sin mx cos nx between minus pi to pi. Okay, so what will this be? This will be 1 by 2 pi integral minus pi to pi sin mx cos nx dx. Okay, so when you have such complicated sine and cos functions, the easiest way to deal with them is to convert them to the exponential forms. Okay, so what will it be? It will be minus 1 by, it will be 1 by 2 pi minus pi to pi. Okay, and you can write this as, so sin mx is nothing but e power I mx minus e power minus I mx by 2, and cos nx is e power I nx plus e power I nx. So this is by 2i and this is by 2 dx. So you can also multiply these out. Okay, so let's multiply them out. So you will get so into 1 by 4i by 2 pi. So you will have e power I m plus n into x plus e power this is minus e power I m minus n into x minus e power minus I m minus n x plus minus e power minus I m plus n into x into dx. Okay, so this is going to be, so all of these, so all of these m plus n, m minus n, these are, m and n are integers, right? Because these represent frequencies. So if m and n are integers, m plus n, m minus n, these will also be some integer. So let's represent this in terms of k, where k can be m plus n or m minus n, etc. Right? Where m and n are integers. Alright, so this integral gets reduced to 1 by 2 pi into 1 by 4i minus pi e power I k x. So each individual term here is of the form e power I k x, some integer into x. Okay, so this is nothing but 1 by 2 pi 1 by 4i 1 by I k into e power I k x from minus pi to pi. Okay, alright. So you have minus 1 by 8 k pi e power I k pi minus e power minus I k pi. Okay, alright. So this is nothing but, this form represents nothing but your sin x form, right? So this is nothing but your so plus 1 by 8 pi, sorry, four pi e power I k pi minus e power minus I k pi by 2i, right? 2ki. The 2i, and let's keep k here. So this term represents nothing but, right, this term represents your sin k pi, right? So this is nothing but 1 by 4 pi k sin k pi. So since k is an integer, right, k is an integer, right, whether positive or whether it is even or odd, okay, whichever type of integer it is, odd or even, sine of pi is also 0, sine of 2 pi is also 0. So this term will become 0. So this integral is nothing but 0. Okay. Alright. So I want you to do an integral for me, which is so homework. Calculate average of the following functions between minus pi and pi. So one is cos square nx and b sin square nx. Okay, so this is your homework.